Chapter 2 Whispers in the Night. The first night at the cabin passed slowly, marked by a pervasive chill that seemed to seep through the walls. The warm glow of the fireplace cast flickering shadows that danced on the wooden walls, creating an unsettling effect. Emily and David had quickly fallen asleep, their exhaustion from the day's activities evident in their deep, rhythmic breathing. Ethan and Rachel, however, remained restless. Rachel's room was the furthest from the living area, nestled in a corner of the cabin that overlooked the dark expanse of the woods. She lay under the covers, staring at the ceiling, unable to quiet her racing thoughts. The faint whispers she had heard during their hike seemed to be growing louder, echoing in her mind like a dissonant symphony. She turned to her side, trying to focus on the comforting sound of Ethan's steady breathing. The noise from the forest outside, a blend of rustling leaves and occasional distant howls, seemed to seep into the cabin, amplifying the eerie atmosphere. Rachel closed her eyes, hoping that sleep would come despite her mounting anxiety. Suddenly, a soft creaking sound pierced the stillness. Rachel's eyes flew open, her heart pounding as she scanned the room. The noise came from the old wooden door that led to the small balcony. It was as if the door had moved of its own accord. She held her breath, straining to hear any further sounds, but the room fell silent once more. Rachel eased herself out of bed and crept toward the door. She found it ajar, the thin sliver of moonlight from outside casting an eerie glow into the room. She pushed the door open wider and peered outside. The balcony was empty, the darkness of the forest stretching out like a vast, impenetrable void. With a shiver, she closed the door and returned to bed, pulling the covers up to her chin. The whispers had ceased, but her unease remained. Every little sound seemed amplified, every shadow more sinister. Down the hall, Ethan was also having trouble sleeping. He had heard Rachel get up and could sense her agitation. Wanting to reassure her, he slipped out of bed and knocked softly on her door. "Rachel," he called softly, "are you okay?" Rachel opened the door, her face pale and tense. "I keep hearing things, whispers, creaks. It's like the cabin is alive." Ethan nodded, though he felt a twinge of unease himself. "Let's check it out. Maybe it's just the house settling or something." They ventured into the hallway, the old floorboards creaking under their weight. As they walked through the dimly lit cabin, they noticed how the shadows seemed to move in peculiar ways, the flickering light from their lantern casting unsettling shapes on the walls. In the living room, they noticed something odd. A door to a small closet was standing open, though neither of them remembered opening it. Inside, they found an old rocking chair, its wooden frame covered in a thick layer of dust. The chair creaked softly, as if it had been recently disturbed. Rachel shivered, a sense of dread creeping over her. "It feels like something is watching us." Ethan tried to remain rational. "It's probably just the combination of old house noises and your imagination. Let's just go back to bed." They returned to their rooms, but sleep was elusive. Every small sound seemed magnified in the silence of the night. The following morning, the group gathered in the kitchen for breakfast, trying to shake off the unease of the previous night. Emily and David were animated, discussing plans for a hike and exploring nearby trails, while Rachel and Ethan exchanged concerned glances. "Did you two sleep well?" Emily asked, pouring coffee into her mug. "Yeah," Ethan replied, trying to sound casual. "Just a bit restless." Rachel forced a smile. "I kept hearing things. Creaks, whispers. But it's probably nothing." David raised an eyebrow. "It's an old cabin. I'm sure it just makes odd noises. It's part of the charm." After breakfast, the group decided to explore the cabin more thoroughly. They began in the attic, a dusty cobweb-filled space that had clearly been untouched for years. They found old trunks filled with yellowed newspapers and forgotten knickknacks. Among the clutter, Rachel's eye was drawn to an old leather-bound journal lying partially buried beneath a stack of papers. "Look at this," she said, holding up the journal. "It looks like it might be old." Ethan took the journal from her and began flipping through its pages. The handwriting was elegant, but increasingly erratic as the pages progressed. The entries started out normal, descriptions of daily life, notes about the family's routines, but gradually became more disturbed. Rachel and Ethan read aloud as they skimmed through the journal, their voices dropping to whispers as the content grew darker. The entries spoke of growing paranoia, strange occurrences, and a presence in the woods that seemed to haunt the writer's every step. "The more I write," one entry read, "the more I feel like I am being watched. The presence is growing stronger. It whispers to me, calling me to join it in the darkness." Rachel shivered as she read. "This is so creepy. It sounds like the person who wrote this was losing their mind." Ethan nodded, and it gets even stranger. "Look at this." The final pages of the journal were almost incoherent, with frantic scribbles and erratic notes. The last entry was particularly unsettling, abruptly ending in mid-sentence. "I can hear it outside. The whispers are louder now. It's coming for me. I—" The rest of the page was blank. Rachel and Ethan exchanged worried glances. "This doesn't look good," Rachel said softly. "It's like the person just vanished." Ethan agreed. "We should show this to Emily and David. They need to know what we've found." When they rejoined the others, Rachel and Ethan explained their discovery. Emily and David listened with varying degrees of skepticism and concern. Emily was intrigued but tried to stay practical. "It's an old journal from someone who lived here a long time ago," she said. "It might just be the ramblings of someone who was stressed out or had mental health issues." David nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's unsettling, but we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Let's just enjoy our weekend and not let this get to us." Despite their attempts to remain calm, the journal's contents weighed heavily on Rachel and Ethan. The eerie description of a presence lurking in the woods, coupled with the abrupt end of the writer's entries, created an atmosphere of palpable tension. As evening approached, the group decided to take a walk in the woods to shake off the lingering unease. The forest was serene in the fading light, but the shadows seemed deeper, the whispers more insistent. Rachel's earlier fears returned, her sense of being watched growing stronger with each step. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees twisting into dark, ominous shapes. Despite their best efforts to stay upbeat, the group couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them from the shadows. As they made their way back to the cabin, Rachel couldn't ignore the feeling that the forest was alive with secrets. The whispers from the journal seemed to echo in her mind, blending with the sounds of the forest and heightening her sense of dread. Back at the cabin, the atmosphere was tense. The journal's revelations had cast a long shadow over their weekend plans. As they settled in for the night, the once cozy cabin now felt like a prison, the walls seemingly closing in with each passing hour. Rachel lay in bed, the whispers of the journal mingling with the sounds of the forest outside. The sense of dread was inescapable, and she couldn't help but wonder if the cabin's dark history was more than just a collection of old tales. As sleep finally overtook her, the shadows of the forest seemed to whisper her name, promising that the darkness was only beginning to unveil its secrets.